Welcome to Advanced Toastmasters Online. We are an Advanced Toastmasters Club which supports maverick leaders to have more impact by providing advanced feedback on leadership skills and discovering what it means to be out-of-the-box, innovative leaders. Today, I decided to have a meeting theme of beginning again, because as I discovered, in a lot of places across the United States, or North America at least, today is the first day of school. Now, when I was going to school, it started right after Labor Day in September, but it seems to be earlier now. But certainly for those going to school, or the parents of those going to school, today is a time for beginning again. We're beginning. Kids are going back, they're beginning their education at the next level, and parents are having to help them settle into that new role, new position, new beginning. And certainly as leaders, we always need to be thinking about how we are beginning again, because sometimes life takes changes that you just have to accommodate. And you might think you're on a path that is going to take you where your life is going to go, and then discover it's not. And you get to begin again and learn again and keep on going, because we can always be on a road to mastery. It just might fork at times. I'd like to introduce first our timer to show us the timing that he's got. And explain his role. So please welcome John Humpert.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doug. And as timer, I pop up with my screen from time to time. I'll use this particular app. And so whatever the project is, I'll be listening for the time frame. And at strategic moments, I will share just large on screen where we are, what we're doing, so that the speaker has that cue. Is there another process that is more if there's another approach that I should use instead, please let me know.
Thank you, John. One thing that we do, because we're an online club, if you could edit your name to mark that you're the timer, and then everyone, as we are speaking, make sure that we have at least John's thumbnail up and visible so that we can see when he shows any time. That would be the most effective. Today we have one speaker scheduled. We had a second, but as the mother of a new student going back to school, she found herself to be rather busy today. There's always plenty to do. So we have just the one speaker today, and that'll give us more time for some interesting table topics. So our speaker today is, there it is, Tammy Lang. And Tammy is a distinguished Toastmaster already. And she says one of the reasons she joined Advanced Toastmasters Online was to improve her skills in virtual presentation, which is part of her work as a business educator. Tammy has done research yes, John has a good question. Is this a 5 to 7 minute speech? It looks like it, yeah. Great, so Tammy's done research on her favorite topics for this fact-finding report. She is doing the project number 4 from the Speaking to Inform manual, which is a fact-finding report. So please help me welcome Tammy with her PowerPoint presentation and speech entitled, Dog, Did You Know? Tammy.
All right, I am sharing my screen right now with you. Thank you, Toastmaster, for introducing me this morning. All right, my topic today is dogs, did you know? There's 3 points I hope to cover today. The first one being talking about how animals who end up in shelters, where do they come from, explain what a puppy mill is, and understand that animals come from puppy mills, what that life might be like for those puppies. I've got lots of facts here. I'm going to cite some information from the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. 6.5 million companion animals, those are your pets, end up in shelters every year. 1.5 million of those are euthanized. 3.2 million, though, are adopted each year, and that number is actually going up. 710,000 animals who enter shelters are strays, but they are returned to their owner. 78 million dogs, 85.8 million cats actually are rehomed in the U.S. And this might be you. 44% of us have a dog in the house, and 34% of those dogs, though, are purchased from breeders. The other 23% are obtained from animal shelters. Why do people turn their dogs into shelters? Usually it's due to some problem behaviors, aggressiveness. The dog got bigger than I thought it was going to be. I don't have time for that. Or there's just some health or problem issues with the dog. The pet owner says, I can't handle this. Some more facts. KMTV Television, which is this TV station in Omaha, Nebraska, they reported in May 2018 that Nebraska ranks number 6 on the horrible 100 list of puppy mills. We are not the worst. Missouri has the largest number of puppy mills. And KMTV reported that Nebraska has 6 puppy mills. Nebraska is where I live, so this is important to me. Nebraska law does allow us that we're supposed to have licensed puppy owners. If you're breeding dogs, you can do that as long as you're following the commercial breeder regulations. 99% of puppies that you see in a pet store come from these puppy mills, which I'll talk about in a little bit. These puppies live in deplorable conditions. They're in cages their whole lives. They live and eat and poop in the same area they stand in. Tiny cages is where they defecate. They never see grass. They don't always get fed well. No dental care, no vaccinations. There's hardly ever any human contact. They truly are just a breeding animal. If you want to buy a puppy from a breeder, go visit that puppy, that breeder. See what kind of condition they keep those dogs in. Make yourself informed. More facts from the Humane Society of the U.S. Now, again, I focus on Nebraska. That's where I live. They listed 8 towns in Nebraska that have puppy mills, so that's kind of a contradiction to what KMTV reported. And I'm thinking probably even in your state there's more than the numbers listed because they're not always regulated and you're just breeding dogs, and who's going to check up on you? The place where I visit and volunteer when I can is called Hearts United for Animals. They are located in southeast Nebraska in Auburn, Nebraska. It's a no-kill shelter, and that is simply what it says it is. They will do everything they can not to euthanize a pet. Pets that may be on a list to be euthanized end up in Auburn because they can find a happy life even if it's life in the shelter. There's also a no-kill shelter in Lincoln, the town I live in. It's called the Cat House. Since 1996, HUA in Auburn has rescued over 10,000 puppy mill dogs. And they report that actually because of their efforts, there's over 1,500 less licensed breeders because of education and enforcement and trying to make this change to get rid of those puppy mills. Their mission is to end the suffering of the animals, even if it means they spend their life in a shelter, at least they have a nice, happy life. And also HUA is where I have adopted 4 of my Doxy dogs, my little Doxy girls, which I'll talk about in a few minutes too. Here's some more facts about puppy mills. If you've never heard of this, then I hope you walk away from this fact time report with information about why you should know more about where these puppies come from. 10,000 in the U.S., licensed and unlicensed. Over 176 of those are estimated dogs kept solely for purposes of breeding. That's their whole purpose on life. Over 114,000 of those female dogs, that's all they do. They're bred over and over and over again. 2.5 million estimated number of puppies sold annually who originate from these horrible puppy mills. And those are licensed and unlicensed. Probably more than that because who knows what else is going on out there. So here's my Doxy girls from HUA. The 2 in the middle are no longer with me. The 2 on the outside are my girls right now. The 2 that are kind of on, I guess it would be on this side of the screen that look a little bit alike, they came from the same. She not only was a breeder, but she was a hoarder, so she hoarded dogs in her house. She was in Kansas. And these 2 are somehow related. Those 2 also are the ones that have diabetes, and so it makes you wonder if maybe that's hereditary. So my breeder dogs that I rescued, they have all 4 have had horrible health problems. They all have teeth problems. My little Rocket, the big girl on the left, she hardly has any teeth. They all have socialization problems. Even Rocket, who we've had for 7 years, still has issues with that. The two in the middle I showed you died prematurely. They didn't live over the age of 10, and because of some health issues. I mentioned the diabetes. That's not because they're puppy mill dogs, but again, my puppy mill rescues have had some pretty interesting health issues that I've learned to deal with. They don't always trust. They like to steal food. And I found, too, that they seem to sometimes be scared of my husband. It gets better over time, but I wonder if that's because of the life with the breeder. Maybe there was some trauma there. So, again, lots of health issues, but I love them to death. And I'm learning how to be a good dog mom with those diabetic dogs. So what I hope you take away today from my speech, my fact-finding speech, is educate yourself when you're ready to adopt that next dog. You want to go to the puppy mill store, or you want to go to a shelter and adopt. And there's plenty of puppies in the shelters that need adoption too. Spread the word. Make sure people know about those puppy mill stores. The pet store on the corner, that puppy in the window may have come from a horrible puppy mill. If you want to get a puppy, that's great. I love puppies. Go visit the people that are selling those puppies. See if they have good conditions and are well taken care of, and if they are actually loved. Go visit your local shelter. Find the perfect puppy to adopt. Support your animal shelters with funding. They've always need issues with fundraising. And I guarantee if you find a shelter pet, you will experience the unconditional love of a shelter pet. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tammy, for a very informative speech, and one that I think we can all relate to in some way. And certainly those facts are pretty shocking. I'd now like to move to our impromptu speaking session, our table topics. Actually, we have a moment, if anybody would like to make some comments in the chat for Tammy to give her some feedback. We can also do verbal feedback as a round robin after Erin's evaluation. Okay, moving right along. For our table topics today, we have Lori Whitmore, who very generously volunteered to be our topics master just this morning. So thank you, Lori, for signing up, and I'm looking forward to hearing your topics.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. I have some interesting topics to share today, and interested to hear what all of you have to say. First speaker is John. Maybe someone else could time for John. John, what change in the next 50 years are you most interested to see? You have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Topic Master. The change that I'd like to see in the next 50 years. And, well, this is one of those themes that tie in well with beginning again. There's so many things that would be set for a redo. And I'd rather share with you something that maybe you haven't thought of, as opposed to something that's maybe at the top of most people's minds. I spent a couple years in living in Germany when I was in my young 20s. And I really enjoyed something, the positive quality about the population density. You know, Germany has about 80 million people, and they all live within a space about the size of Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and half of Tennessee. And when you live that closely together, you take care of your resources and you take care of your space in a whole different way. I was just thinking yesterday how when you walk around in Europe, you see most of the time people have their projects that are out there visible to the public. They have them finished. And I walk around my neighborhood and I see lots of people's projects unfinished. So there's just something of a respect and a change that I would envision, is that quality of life that's there might be somehow adapted, because we lack that sense of community, that sense of responsibility to each other, to have a beautiful world, because we're all spread out and we can do that. But if we would just rethink, maybe a nicer, more aesthetic world. Madam Topic Master.
Thank you so much, John. That was a very deep, thoughtful answer. For our next topic, if you could stand at any pinnacle of any natural or man-made object, what object would that be? Aaron.
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that?
If you could stand at any pinnacle of any natural or man-made object, what object would that be?
Fellow Toastmasters and most distinguished guests also there's in any. I would say the most pinnacle that I would stand on is actually at my own pinnacle. I was actually thinking about what sort of pinnacle would be great, and I thought about my own personal height. When I say my own personal height, doesn't mean my height. Doesn't mean that my 1.7 meter height. But I'm saying my pinnacle in terms of my achievements and my milestones. I'm currently a criminal barrister, aiming to become a judge in the future. I would like to stand on something whereby I can look at the end of my road, that I can see how many people I can benefit from in the near future by becoming a judge. Originally, I was planning to become a judge in UK. However, it wasn't that well, because in UK itself, it requires you to become a British citizen to actually become a judge there. So although I have quite a lot of achievements, I couldn't get my hands on to even becoming a High Court judge, because it requires recommendations and it also requires the preliminary test to be passed, which is your British citizenship. I've been there for like 5 years, but then after which I think about, well, if I want to be a judge, I can be a judge on anywhere. So I want to come back to Hong Kong and see whether I want to become a judge again. And in Hong Kong, wise, it's slightly different from the British system, although they share the same legal system. It's just that the Hong Kong way, it runs by 2 different laws at the same time. So meaning if I want to become a judge, I have to be really going for more different concepts, such as studying Chinese law, studying that there's lack of human rights in China. I have to prevent any cross-conflict laws between the Commonwealth law and also the Chinese law, and also see the difference in there. So standing on the pinnacle would be really great when I look back, if I become a judge in the future, that I can benefit people and seek redresses for those innocent people. So that's my future that I'm aiming for. Back to you. That's my evening. Oh no, tabletop.
Thank you, Aaron. The volume when you're speaking goes in and out. It's very hard to hear you. But we were able to, and I hope my phone's ringing didn't distract everyone. Sorry about that. For our next speaker, I'm deliberately not saying the name first so that all of you have to think of a speech. They couldn't pay me enough to do that job. What job would that be for you? Dawn.
Thank you, Lori, for asking me this question. This is a question that I think of often, and it may be a job that some of you may have done before, and I will tell you that I have only done this one job once in my life, and that was waitressing. And I did this job for one night and one night only when I was probably 19 years old. I helped a friend's brother open a restaurant. They just needed waitresses for the one opening night. There was only one thing on the menu, but I will tell you, that was the hardest work I've ever done in my entire life. I have never been so sore, so tired, and never felt that I have used my physical body to just keep moving as much as I did when I was waitressing. And just recently we went on a cruise, and the topic of I would never want to do that job ever again came up also on the cruise, where the waiters were all happy and friendly, but it requires a lot of patience and a lot of smiles when you don't feel like smiling. And I'm not that kind of person who can put up with as much as some waitresses do or waiters do. So that's my answer. And thanks for asking the question. Back to you, Lori.
Thank you, Dawn. I have done many different jobs in my life, but being a waiter, waitress, and bartending is not among them. So I agree. For our next question, what is one historical document every American should know by heart? Doug. In your opinion.
Well, thank you for the question. A historical document, every American should know by heart. Well, a number of historical documents do tend to be worded in rather complex ways, so knowing them by heart is perhaps a challenge to know them, say, verbatim and be able to quote them. But I think every citizen of the United States should know, to a reasonable degree, their own Constitution, including all the various amendments. Because if you don't know what the founding principles of this country were based upon, it's not reasonable to make arguments for or against the freedoms that we have, or the rights that we have, or should have, if you don't even know properly what has been codified and documented in the Constitution of the United States. And people talk about, the various rights like the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, without actually understanding that it is not a statement that says everybody is free to say anything they want, anytime they want, without consequences. That is not the case. The First Amendment says that the government shall make no laws restricting that. But it doesn't say that private companies have to follow that same principle. And if there are things that people say that completely violate the principles of a company that they're supposed to be representing, there can be consequences, and it is entirely legal. So that's just one example of why I think people need to understand the Constitution better as citizens of the United States. Or wherever country you're at, know your own laws. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Doug. I'm not sure how well I know all of the Constitution. You have inspired me to go look it up. And for our last speaker today, Tammy, what is one item you own that you won't throw away that you really need to get rid of?
Well, I could probably think of several items. I'm not saying I'm a hoarder, but I have a lot of stuff, I guess. We've been toying with the idea of possibly trying to move to an acreage, and as I look around the house and think, where do you even start with what to give away and what to try to sell and whatnot, I don't know if I want to get rid of this. I have a piano, and I know how to play the piano. I even took lessons as an adult a few years ago. Then I got busy like we all do, so I kind of gave that up. But it's taken up a pretty big chunk of our dining room. But I just like the look of that classical piano that sits there and think someday I'll sit down and play it again. I've got some great sheet music I like to kind of tinker with, especially at Christmas. And it's kind of a thing that's honor of my grandma who taught me how to play piano, who's no longer with us, that maybe it's more of a memorial thing that I want to keep it around just to say, this kind of reminds me of grandma, and if I pick up and play a couple tunes, it will remind me of her. I also have a trumpet. I played trumpet in high school, loved it. So kind of the same thing. I was going to learn how to play trumpet and go play in the church band. Never had time for that. Took about a month worth of lessons. But I feel like if I get rid of it, then I'm giving it up saying I'm never going to play this again. So the back of my mind, maybe when I have all this free time in my life, I'll pick up both instruments. Until then, though, I keep them around, taking up space and gathering dust. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Tammy. Truth be told, I have 2 pianos that we don't use, one on each floor. So we're in the same boat. It looks beautiful in my living room, but I haven't played it in more than 10 years. I don't even bother tuning it anymore. So I get it. I understand. Well, thank you all for your participation in topics today. Hope you enjoyed some of the challenging questions. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lori, for providing us some great questions in our topics today. I think it's been rather interesting to get to know everybody a little bit more. And yeah, like Tammy, I used to play trumpet in high school. That stopped in high school. And my sister, who is a musician, she actually is a music teacher in school. Well, she took my trumpet. I was happy to give it to her. So it's still finding some use, I think. With regard to our theme, beginning again, as Toastmasters, especially advanced Toastmasters here, there is another area where we are beginning again. And that is, of course, pathways. This is the time for Toastmasters who might already have the DTM award to think about starting over again on a completely new path. And some definitely already are. It's a great opportunity to recharge your learning in Toastmasters and keep on going. I'd now like to move to the evaluation portion of our meeting. And for that, we have our club president for this starting club, Dawn Nacera, to be our general evaluator. Please welcome Dawn.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone. And I'm just going to go straight into the evaluation portion of the meeting and ask Erin to unmute yourself for your evaluation of Tammy. And if you remember, Erin, just to key it up so you are in the consciousness of doing the round robin at the end. And if you need help with that for any reason, I can do that. Just let me know. But at this time, I would love to have you unmute yourself so you can have do your evaluation of Tammy.
Thank you, Jeremy Evaluator. I'm really honored to be evaluating Tammy. If you really Notice I have switched off the background sound just to be very concentrated in evaluating Tammy. So from this speech itself is an advanced speech manual from a fact-finding report. So main objectives are really letting us know those facts to illustrate or revolve a theme. And the theme related is actually on animals and dogs specifically. You can see from Tammy's speech itself, she is someone with passion. She's someone with love. And she's someone that actually illustrates, I want you to know everything in a nutshell. So throughout the whole presentation itself, the tone, the pacing has actually helped us to understand what she was trying to bring out. So starting slide actually focused on three main points. I was actually really inspired by looking forward to what sort of animals are there. And in the end, there are like dogs and cats. I was actually looking forward to, I thought there would be rabbits or something. I was looking forward for other answers. But then we remember that the topic is mainly revolving around dogs. So she showed us two types of presentation method. One is actually from 3 different reports and also pictures of her taking care of 4 dogs. The pictures really help a lot in the whole fact-finding because in a fact-finding report, one of the challenges that evaluate or a speaker will be facing is how do we sustain the attention of all the audience. And she did really well because of a vocal variety and also making sure that there are real life pictures that she took care of 4 dogs and a nice takeaway message at the end. So these are really the praises I really come up with, and I really enjoyed learning a new term called puppy mills. I never know that there is something called the mills. I always called that a shelter until you mentioned there's a mill. Like, mills, I thought that is for rice mills or something. So that's a new term for me to learn today. Challenges for Tammy in terms of 2 main parts. The first thing is an fact-finding report. I would love to see 2 more additional components in your PPT. One is to compare and contrast, meaning that I want to see charts instead of just meaning about wordings. Because I want to see the severity of how many puppies, because your main point is actually taking care and protecting them. So I want to see how severe that problem is within your country. That's one point. So I want to see charts. 2, is this a global issue or you're just focusing on only in America? So I want to see that if you're actually giving us a global view, then I would like to see some reports from other different countries which support your claim, because it's not just only in your country, it's happening around the world. So I want to see that too. And I also want to see the year. The year will be very important of the facts, because you actually mentioned like one of the facts is actually from 2018. I want to see the facts from that year compared to last year. Is there an increase or a decrease? That's related to the first point of improvement. I would also love to give another recommendation of the takeaway into a few words, 1 keyword each of 3 main points, so that it will be a better takeaway message because it's for us to digest. If you add too much words, we can't digest it. If you add too little, we think it's not too important. So all in all, great evaluation, great speech. Give a round of applause to Tammy. Now it's the time for the round robin. Yay, I managed to make it 3 minutes 39. So now it's the time whereby I can redirect to round robin to anyone who would like to give the comments to Tammy overall on the speech. So.
And I would like to ask John to put the timer up for about 2 minutes, because we do this for 2 to 3 minutes, this round robin. We usually don't go that long, but if you could do that, that would be great. Thank you.
So 2 minutes then. So first of all, I will refer to Doc because he raised up the hand first.
Sure.
So,
Tammy, I thought it was a very informative speech. It was well done. I certainly learned a lot. You presented the facts clearly and well. You spoke very well. I think what I was thinking when I'm looking at the PowerPoint is that there's a lot of detail on each slide, which can be difficult to take in overall, and not really very graphic. But then again, it's a fact-finding report. You're supposed to present the facts. So I think that was actually probably the right choice for this type of report. One challenge I want to make, though, is where you were abbreviating HUA, which is Hearts United for Animals. On that first slide where you were saying HUA, I had to go, oh, what's that again? And then I saw in the header, it does say Hearts United for Animals. I think it would be great if you could just put in brackets right after that, Hearts United for Animals, bracket HUA. it would help make sure that everybody knows that that's an acronym you're going to be referring to and make it a little bit easier for us. Back to you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to pass the mic to Laurie to comment on Tammy's. Unmute yourself, Laurie.
You're still muted.
Yes, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? I really enjoyed Tammy's speech so much. I thought that she presented a good viewpoint with lots of detail. I also have a suggestion about the slides being so wordy. I think a good rule of thumb for slides is using something like a font size of 28 point. And that will limit how many words you put on a page. I found myself spending time reading the slides, and then I wasn't looking at Tammy, the speaker. I could hear her speaking as I was reading, but I wasn't engaging in eye contact with Tammy because of that. So that's my suggestion. You know, but overall the material was very, very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's actually 2 minutes ish, so I would like to pass the mic back to our general evaluator, Don.
Thank you, Aaron, for a wonderful evaluation. We have a couple more minutes, so we'll, because of our meeting and we only had one speech, I will ask, John, did you have anything that you would like to add about Tammy's speech? Did you have anything that you would like to comment on?
Something does come to mind, and that would be that at the beginning of the Toastmaster meeting, we all need to hear what is our universe. So Aaron alluded to the fact that the clearly, and sort of for me for the first time, that that somebody was outside of the United States, which is not unusual, but a lot of times we don't think about it when we're from the Midwest or within the United States. We're a bit ethnocentric in that way. And by placing that kind of information at the beginning, it puts all of us on notice that we may need to make some kind of last minute change possibly to be more inclusive.
That's great. Thanks, John. I appreciate that reminder for all of us, because we are a global club. We do have people from all over the place, and Aaron is here from Hong Kong today, and we've had people from all over the world. So that's a great point.
Yeah. In a way, we should all kind of be on notice all the time, but it's interesting what creeps into our assumptions. I'm a student of public relations, and keeping your audience in mind is something that I've always tried to practice as much as I can.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And any final comments about, I think I'm the only other person who hasn't made an official comment about Tammy's speech. So I will just say, I felt for me personally, it was timely. I shared in private chat that my daughter is purchasing a dog as we speak. She's in that process of looking for a previously loved dog. And that's all that information that you shared, I could pass on to her. I think she's kind of gone through that entire process, that she's actually looking at the dog now. So it was good to see from a dog lover's perspective of, the puppy mills and all those other things. And we also frequently visit pet stores just to pet the dogs. So I felt it made a connection. We don't own dogs, but I did feel a connection with it. And also wanted to say that I think it was a universal topic. Everybody either has a dog or knows somebody who has a dog. So you could have brought that into our awareness at the very beginning to like bring us into the consciousness that this is a universal thing. Dogs are universal, whether we own them or have a family who owns a dog. So that may have elevated our awareness that we belong in that conversation with you. And at this time, I'm going to check the chat box. Okay, oops. Let's see if there's anything special here. Okay. So to evaluate the entire meeting now, I would like to ask the timer to give us a timer's report. John, could you give us a timer's report?
Thank you, Dawn. And in your role as general evaluator, I've just posted to the chat the timing report.
Just see it.
Yeah, so Tammy, your time was 7 minutes 16 seconds. Table topics, my own was 2 minutes 27. Aaron, 2 minutes 18. Dawn, 1 minute 44. Doug, 2 minutes 20 seconds. Tammy, 1:27. And Aaron, your evaluation, 3 minutes 30 seconds. I like your spirit of using every available second. And thank you also for the support to pass my table topics time, Madam General Evaluator.
Oh, thank you. That was great. And thanks for being a great example of sharing that your timers report in the chat box as well. That was wonderful. And I do want to point out, since I'm doing the general evaluation, that I sent a private message. I'm not sure that you saw it, but I was hoping that you would see that you didn't actually have to put the time up the entire time. So you didn't have to miss the meeting, but that's your choice. So I appreciate both having the ability to see the time exactly the entire time, and also your choice to either do that or not as a timer. That added another element to the realm of possibility for what the timer can do. So I appreciated that. And go ahead, John. Did you have something?
I noticed also, I'm glad that my webcam is not built in because it allowed me to lean my phone against an object, and then all I had to do was hold the camera in front. It was a little bit easier. Otherwise, you have to hold the camera or the phone close to the fixed built-in webcam.
Yeah. So, and just for future references, I think what we do is we try to find, I didn't have my folders. I have like red, yellow, green folders, and we just put them up at the time and put it in the chat box. It's kind of hard sometimes to do that both as the timer, but we do that because the chat box is not as big as a distraction. I know other online clubs will actually move the timer into the screen. I think that's very distracting for the speaker, so we don't do that, but we do the chat box. And I think you did a great job of helping us see more of what's possible, like I said. And Aaron, on your evaluation of Tammy, you did a really fantastic job. I made some notes. I think you have a really good ability to observe, to bring out to bring the speech to a whole nother level. And we are an advanced club, so I appreciate all of the pieces of information that you shared with her that could bring that simple speech about a dog to dogs to a whole nother level of fact finding, especially the comparing and contrasting to show that that's a possibility, especially for this fact finding speech, and the addition of using charts, how that could also bring that up to another level. I appreciate that you can take any speech and give us like that next level of possibility for what we're doing here in this advanced club. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to just say, Tammy, I enjoy all of your speeches. You are very well organized, and it feels good to have an organized speech. It feels good to be, of course, we're all advanced Toastmasters. I will share that organization is not my number one gift, right? And I love seeing other Toastmasters use that gift of organization in a speech and in evaluations. Doug, you did a fantastic job of organizing our meeting today and also giving us that theme of beginning again and tying it in with our journey towards beginning again as Toastmasters with pathways. Because some of us are using it, some of us aren't, some of us are actively involved in that in our districts. We're maybe not talking about it so much here, but we all are on that path of beginning again. And of course, some of us, like Aaron, are like, pathways? Yeah, that's done that, been there, done that. I could get my DTM already. And Lori, I so enjoy all of your table topics that you bring. I appreciate that this was a eclectic, I guess, lots of different questions from a lot of, oops, my internet connection is there. I appreciate that they were varied. Your questions were varied. They gave us room to kind of jump and explore different ideas. And at the same time, I believe that we got to meet all of the members at a new level. That I appreciated. So with my evaluation portion, did I miss anything? Anyone want to share? Nope, I didn't miss anything. So at this point, I'm going to pass the meeting back to Doug, our Toastmaster for today, and say thank you very much for allowing me to evaluate the meeting.
Thank you, Dawn, for giving some great feedback on the various roles and for handling our evaluation portions. That brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. And in closing, I'd just like to say it's never too late to make a new beginning. As long as we're still breathing, we still have the capability of learning something new and stepping out into new realms of discomfort that take us to whole new places that you never really imagined before, but are still possible. So with that, I'd like to close our meeting and say thank you everyone for coming. Now we're back to Dawn to handle roles for next week.
Yeah, we can all unmute ourselves. And I would, oh yes, thanks for reminding me to stop the recording. Thank you all for your lovely